This is something I've wanted to talk about for a long time, but I've never known how to best express my thoughts until recently when I began to play other systems. I've gemmed D&D for over 10 years and played it for over 20, and I've always felt like there was something missing as a fan of the game. But I could never quite put my finger on what it was until now. 5th edition D&D has a problem, more than just the unbalanced character options or the broken challenge rating, more even than the lackluster books or the sinister monetization they've been trying recently. 5th edition D&D has an inherent problem that is caused by its sort of half-baked rule set and its reliance on GMs fixing things with homebrew. And this problem is that the community is all playing a different game, and this has diminished the community's camaraderie based around the IP's identifiable and beloved characters. With films, video games, or books, the community can rally around their love of certain characters or celebrate the defeat of infamous villains, but that can't really happen in 5th edition D&D, and I want to talk about why. Hello, I'm Skull. As I mentioned, I've played D&D for 20 years, and I've GM'd it for over 10 of those. I started with 4th edition, obviously, and then moved to 5th edition, and very recently, I've been giving some other systems a go. Currently, I'm spending a lot of time with the Pathfinder 2e system. Regardless, what I'm trying to say is I have plenty of experience with 5th edition and with D&D. One of 5th edition's most well-regarded official Wizards of the Coast campaigns is Curse of Strahd, so I'm going to use that as an example adventure throughout most of this video. It's a campaign that I've run, it's a campaign that many people have played, and it's got a great, memorable villain. So, what's the problem? If my players have killed Strahd, and you've killed Strahd, why can't we get excited together and revel equally in the accomplishment? Well, what if I told you that my group used all homebrew classes and races, and that group banned full casters because the GM thinks they're OP, and that group runs stealth differently than you, so their rogue was able to one-shot him, and that group's DM fully homebrewed Strahd stat block to make him harder, and that group had a custom magic item that trivialized the fight. You get the idea. Because 5th edition doesn't have a set rule for all the potential behaviors, because it relies so heavily on DMs to homebrew their games and DM caveat to run the game, we haven't all fought the same Strahd. Some groups had it much easier, some groups had it much harder, and some fought a totally different creature that was just named Strahd. So when we find fellow D&D players that aren't in our specific game, and we want to chat about the adventures that we've both played, we aren't actually coming into the conversation on equal footing. Here are some examples from posts online about their defeat of Strahd. In this example, the GM had Strahd use command or mass suggestion or something to tell a wizard to jump off a tower. This isn't how the spell is supposed to work, so in theory, was an illegal move, but obviously they're the GM. They can run the game however they want. This obviously made the combat quite difficult, as essentially he had the wizard commit suicide. This GM is looking for advice on how to make Strahd stronger. Apparently, there are a lot of alternate versions of Strahd's stat block, so this group, when they do eventually kill Strahd, will not have fought the same one we have fought. This game had the barbarian tackle Strahd out of a window, and Strahd died upon impacting a impaling fence. This is definitely not how I would have run this scenario, especially not with the abilities that Strahd has at his disposal. This group had Strahd killed by flumps. Again, not something I would have ruled would be able to happen, and well, I would have been pretty disappointed if the adventure had ended via flumps. So again, a very different experience than what our groups would have gone through. These players have clearly had a great time, and I would never try to take that away from them. Their accomplishments are real and valid, but that wasn't the same game that my group played. There are rulings during those stories that I would not have made. This comment kind of hits the nail on the head. So, when these groups meet each other and want to talk about Curse of Strahd and how they beat Strahd, there's an inherent tension there. Another way to describe it is imagine beating Elden Ring, meeting somebody that loves the game too, excitedly talking about how hard your favourite boss was, only to find out that they beat it using a modded character. Whether it's right or not, you'd pull back a little bit. And it's not just a problem with specific adventures. I did a poll on the D&D subreddit, and 82% of people said that they were choosing to run a homebrew or a third-party game over playing a Wizards of the Coast module. Obviously, Reddit will provide a skewed data since most of the replies will come from especially passionate GMs. However, Someone very kindly provided me with the numbers for the current Roll20 games that were looking for players, and that came out with about 50% of people running homebrew or third party games. This means, alongside the disparity between groups even running the module, we've got a substantial portion of the community that haven't experienced these stories or characters at all. So, how are Wizards of the Coast going to establish popular or recognizable characters for us all to rally around? Their method so far seems to rely on copyrighted monsters, beholders, mind flayers, etc. However, let's be honest, all the other systems have similar enough alternatives. I'm an easy to enfranchise person. If your setting has strong fantasy vibes and fearsome monsters and villains of strong story significance, then I'm all over it. I love Dritz, I love Dragonlance. Raistlin was the inspiration for one of my favourite player characters I've ever played. Hell, I do even love Strahd. I just wish we were talking about the same Strahd, so we could both celebrate defeating him together, so that he could appear in novels and films and we could both have the same established relationship with him. But sadly, to me, he's a terrifying vampire lord, and to you, he's that guy who got killed by a flump or fell off a roof. Okay, time for the bit that everybody's going to hate. If we look at one of D&D's top competitors, Pathfinder 2 e-modules are played a lot and highly recommended by the community. In addition, the rule set is respected, almost to the point where homebrewing rules is frowned upon. What this means, though, is that when somebody says they killed Belcora, or Tarbafon, or Tree Razor, it's usually safe to assume they fought the same enemy as you, with access to the same resources as you, using the same rules as you. And that makes for a stronger camaraderie between separate groups. When a new player asks what class will be good for X adventure, people can provide sound advice based on what they know of the adventure, and it won't be diminished because this GM happens to run a mechanic differently or has homebrewed a new power into the boss to totally nerf the recommended player options. And while Paizo admittedly hasn't really capitalized on this, it means the Pathfinder setting of Galerion has these well-known villains and NPCs that people recognize and care about. They get excited by them. They recently killed a popular core deity in their lore updates, and in the months leading up to the reveal, the community was excitedly making predictions and discussing how sad they would be if their favourite god was gone. I can't really imagine the D&D community behaving in a similar way if the positions were swapped. If Wizards of the Coast came out and announced they were killing Mordenkainen in their next adventure, the response would probably be, so what, he's still alive in my game. After all the controversies and fumbles that 5th edition has gone through recently, they aren't exactly keeping people playing because of the rule set. They aren't keeping people playing because of the convenience, looking at UD&D Beyond. And as more and more people start to look at other systems, soon they won't even be able to keep people due to it being the most accessible. Making people invested in the setting of D&D using collectively recognizable and beloved NPCs and villains might soon be the best option they have, but they're missing out on the chance for that because their rule set is unreliable and their adventure modules have a bad reputation. I'll be honest, I don't really have an end to this video. I just really wanted to express my thoughts and see if you guys agree. I feel like I'm going crazy watching what should be a mega IP just flail about. They got so close with the Honor Among Thieves film. That film was amazing. And then they just threw away that fan following because it didn't get enough people to watch it in the cinema. So, Wizards of the Coast, sort yourselves out. Make a rule set that people can trust and want to use. Hire module writers that know what they're doing and get people invested in your characters and your villains. And then put them in books, films, and video games. Give fans something to engage with. That's how you can improve your monetization, not by designing power creep into a co-op game or selling microtransactions for a game that only actually exists in a person's mind. Usually, this channel is for campaign diaries of official adventures and modules. At the moment, we have 3 series running for 3 popular Pathfinder 2e adventures, so check them out if you're interested in how another system does things. They're much shorter than an actual play game, so way less time investment for the same value. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. That is it for now, but I'll see you again soon. Bye.